Hello everyone, welcome back to the next episode of Behind the Scenes with Bayut and dubizzle. With the onset of the pandemic, we've seen a lot of industries go digital first. There is one, however, that has always stayed digital. We are going to take a deep dive into this industry with our Director of Performance Marketing, Amash Malik. Hey Amash, welcome to Behind the Scenes.
Thank you, Charles, for having me here.
One of the key words that keep going around the internet, going around business circles even nowadays is performance marketing. How is performance marketing different from marketing?
I think that's a very valid question. Generally, people do mix these two, marketing generally, and then what is performance marketing, what is online marketing, what is digital marketing. Performance marketing, in essence, there are two components, if I have to speak on a very broad level, which differentiate itself from offline marketing. One would be the reach, and the second would be measurability. By reach, I mean that with digital platforms, you have much wider reach. You can literally reach anyone, anywhere in the world, right from your space. Compared to, let's say, if you place a billboard that is only very specific and limited for a particular audience or particular locality. So that's one key differentiator. Then the second thing, which is the measurability, that is how you can actually measure your return on investment for any campaign, whether it's a branding campaign, whether it is a very performance down the funnel sort of a campaign. So you can actually measure it much better compared to, let's say, an offline campaign. Again, if we can take the same example of, let's say, billboard, it would be very difficult to actually estimate what number of eyeballs are seeing the billboard or the particular campaign. On the other hand, if we talk about digital marketing, let's say if you are running a campaign on YouTube or Facebook or any platform which is digital in nature, you can actually see how many impressions you served, what was the view-through rate, do people skip at 6 seconds, 15 seconds, what are their interest points, or what are the touch points where they are more interested in, which ultimately then helps you reshape your creative, reshape your strategy, and then even evolve further in terms of your return on investment. Because you can measure it better, you can ultimately understand what the audience needs and then build over that to fine-tune your product or services.
I think one example which I've seen in one of your LinkedIn posts actually, when we take a football game, the banner ads that run around the stadium, those are actually different for different people that view. And you use a very technical term for it. Can you sort of explain that?
Effectively, those are digital billboards. So you can call them, classify them as a digital medium, but that is probably the evolution of the conventional marketing, I would say. So TV is now evolving, which can be very customized for various audiences, various geographies. So for example, the same feed, let's say if it's a telecasting a football match or a cricket match across various countries, so they can take more advantage out of that if the context is more relevant. So for example, if it's one country, they would ideally want to show a branding or an ad for which is relevant to that audience, and likewise for the other countries.
Right, and makes it, and well, with relevance, of course, you get much more, I think we would say, cleaner leads in a sense.
Absolutely. I think relevance is the key. Being relevant in a user's journey at all times, that is important, whether a user is researching a product. So there's in fact a term called zero moment of truth, which is basically when a user is searching or looking for a product, even before the knowledge of the brand or the company which is offering that product or the service. So you want to be there, whether it is a consumer searching for a product or which is basically let's say present on search marketing. So if someone is searching via keyword and then you are at the top, so that is when you are part of the funnel when a consumer is finding a product. And on the flip side, also when products reach out to the consumer, that is in a nutshell display marketing. So you as a product or service reach out to your audience or users.
So if I can take a real world example, when you go to a mall, you look at the entrance of a particular shop, and I forgot the technical term for it, but that spot is kept very spacious, very inviting, and they want you to walk into the store. I think that's similar to the first 3 or 5 seconds of the ad that's played on a digital medium.
That's right. Yeah.
Right?
So capturing the attention, which also links with the relevancy component. This is very important, especially in today's world when there is so much content being produced. Each second you have social media, you have video content platforms, and then other digital activities. So the attention span naturally gets limited. On aggregate, the time spent generally probably has increased or is much more compared to, let's say, some time back. But then the attention span on a very specific creative or product or experience has reduced. So then you have to be present and be relevant in a very timely fashion.
So which sort of brings us to the next phase of what we'll be discussing, and that is, and I like to say this because being part of the EMPG family, we've got a portfolio of companies around the equator, and I know that your team particularly works with every one of them, or almost every one of them. Do you have different strategies for different geographic locations?
We are one of the central teams across the group. So if I can speak about the team structure before I delve down into the other details. So we are primarily based out of Dubai office, and then we have a team in Pakistan.
Okay.
So in total we have about 20-25 people working across all the portals.
I say wow because that's a very small number for all the things that you do. All right.
That's right, true. The way we have divided the work itself is based on there are some markets which we are operating primarily directly and working directly with, which would include Bayut in UAE, Bayut in Saudi, dubizzle, OLX Lebanon, OLX Egypt, and then in Pakistan we have OLX Pakistan, Zameen, and on the eastern front we have Lamudi, Philippines, we have Kaidi. And then in some markets we are more towards the support role. For example, Lamudi Mexico, or it would be Lamudi Indonesia and Mobabab, for instance. But most of the portals we do work directly with, and it becomes a challenge at times because there are certain expectations from each market individually that we are servicing them. But the truth is that we are working across at least 10-12 different countries simultaneously. So yes, that is challenging, but that also gives us room to challenge ourselves on how we can become better each day. So the next part of the question on how do we strategize. So one good thing of being a central team is that certain initiatives, especially on the tech front, that are very scalable if done in the right way. There are certain local challenges which are very localized. So for example, the way we structure our search campaigns, by search campaigns I mean any campaign which depends on a keyword being searched by a user and then we displaying a result against that. So the structure or the strategy we work is very scalable. We have some proprietary tools which we use to scale very quickly and efficiently across different geographies.
In fact, like personalize on a larger scale.
That's right. And in fact, like with the recent onboarding of dubizzle, OLX Egypt, and other countries, Lamudi as well, we were very quickly able to scale that in a very efficient way. Similarly, like there are countless examples, but for app side of things. So the learnings we had on Bayut and dubizzle, we were very quickly able to replicate those for OLX Pakistan. Because at the back end, the technologies you are working is very similar. There are certain things which need to be fine-tuned or customized for each location. But being a central team, that's a big advantage if done the right way. On the speed part, on how you can scale things fast and efficiently.
How much has the team grown?
So over the years, the team has grown significantly. When I joined in 2014,
Right.
digital marketing or performance marketing was probably a very new thing in Pakistan. It like sort of never existed.
Right.
But over the last couple of years, like if I talk about just starting before pandemic, so I think we have almost doubled the team. We used to be about 8-10 people. Now we are close to 20-25 across the two countries.
Right.
And not only this, the team itself has grown individually as well as collectively in terms of their skill set, in terms of how they understand different products, different tools we use, and they have evolved as well. They have shown great potential. And then in terms of the work scope, that has also grown massively. As mentioned initially, we used to have 2-3 portals with Zameen, Bayut, B Property. But now the portfolio has expanded quite significantly, which itself is very challenging. And not only the geographies, but also the verticals.
Right.
Before we only used to work on the property side, but now we have cars, jobs, goods. So it's the whole classified experience. Coupled with transactional side, which is the pure lead gen side, which we work on some of the markets and very heavily in Pakistan for Zameen.
After the pandemic, apart from the volume of increase in terms of the team, in terms of the portfolios that we have, did you see any of the unique challenges for performance marketing as such?
So generally with pandemic, there was lots of shift of the consumer to online media because people had more time, and then due to limited mobility, internet adoption increased significantly. One study shows that about 90% of the data generated in the world ever has been generated in the last couple of years, which is massive if you think about that.
Right.
So
people are literally on their phone.
That's right. So which means with more adoption of internet, the consumer, they expect better. And by that I mean that they expect better services, better experience, which then comes to the various teams, but to us as well, in terms of ensuring that the experience of the consumer, it's not disturbed, it's top notch.
Right.
And for that, we have to work very extensively on the analytics front, on the data front, in terms of creative thinking, out of box strategies, on how to shape the creatives, understanding the full funnels, what is the need of the consumer at what point in time. So we are always there for the consumer.
You know, something that's been on the back of my head, and when we were talking about click-through rate, and we get to know how long a person has been in the campaign before they've gone out. How do you view data privacy? Because that's another mostly talked term around the world nowadays.
That's true, which is also linked with the recent internet adoption, which was fueled up by the pandemic itself.
Right.
But yes, data privacy is a big challenge for all the brands around. But I think it's important to understand how data privacy works. For example, one of the misconceptions I have dealt with is that more data privacy will mean lesser ads. That is not true. More data privacy will mean that the data you expose to different platforms is limited. Hence, it might be more irrelevant ads on the flip side.
Right.
Because you are not allowing the different ad partners or ad networks to understand what your needs are. The ad slots on a particular channel or a particular network will always remain the same.
We know that you have a multi-talented team, a multifaceted team who takes care of portfolios around the equator. If there's someone who wants to join your team, is there a specific set of criteria?
What I would recommend is to focus on the skills because that is what is required and not the core education or the background. This is not what we look into. We look for someone who is very quick learner. Speed is the key. We have to be proactive and not reactive. Innovation, that is the next thing which we look out. You have to think out of the box. In fact, there's a very interesting example. So in Houston Airport, the baggage claim area, so one of the complaints was that it takes about 9 minutes from once you enter the section to your baggage retrieval. So which was one of the major complaints which the team needed to solve. So they did some restructuring in terms of that and brought it down by about 30% to 6 minutes. But when a survey was done, once again, it was still the biggest challenge. So then some out of the box idea came. So what they did was that they made the distance from the entry point to the baggage area much longer. So now the people have to walk all the way and pass that time walking to that area.
Right.
So the complaints almost dropped all the way.
So
it's as simple as it gets.
They literally had to forget what they were doing.
So they literally have to increase the length of the walk time,
so and people forget about the distance. This is similar to putting mirrors inside a lift so that you don't know how long you've spent in there. Wow.
That's right. And then I think building on that, don't be afraid of technology, because that is what we work days in and out. You have to have a very analytical mindset. Be very data driven, because data levels all arguments. Be curious, do lots of experiments, do not worry about failures, instead learn from your failures. And last but not least, be compassionate and considerate, because that is what helps you in a long way.
So you've heard from Amash what it takes to join the performance marketing team. If you're interested, do reach out to us. We have a lot of opportunities right now. And Amash, just moving a bit further into our conversation, we want to get to know Amash better. And having a chat with you sometime back, I know that you've started off as an electrical engineer. And what led to your journey to EMPG?
I graduated from LUMS, which is Lahore University of Management Sciences. I did electrical engineering, which probably in my career so far has been the most asked question. That how did you end up being a performance marketer from electrical engineering? But as I mentioned earlier, performance marketing is a relatively new field compared to, let's say, sales, operations, finance, which has been there for as long as you can think. So the skills you have to learn are on the go. I switched a couple of jobs in between for my first year after the graduation, but those are very engineering specific. And then luckily I got to know about an opening at Zameen, because Zameen was hiring back then. It was the only go-to platform operating in a fully functional way. Bayut existed, but I was in Pakistan at that time. The first job which was offered to me was for sales. So I got an interview from the HR back then, which was around sales, but obviously it was a mismatch. Soon after, I think a week after that incident, I got another call from Zameen HR, and that opening was towards SEO. Again, I didn't had that experience on the search engine optimization, but did have some basic knowledge. Imran, the CEO of EMPG, he took the interview, so it went well. So, and finally, I got the opportunity to work as an SEO specialist. I worked for a couple of months, and at that point in time, I felt that my growth is limited. So I spoke with Imran and Zishan. They both used to sit in the same office. So I went up to them. I asked them that it feels that my growth is limited. What else can be done? So then we sort of established a BI reporting sort of department for the very first time. I used to work on different data sets, different reports for various departments and other projects too. So that is when, in parallel, a performance marketing, a digital marketing team was set up as well.
Sorry to interrupt, but is that when you became an expert in Excel?
You can say that. So in fact, Imran, the CEO, he was the one who was an inspiration in terms of me learning the Excel. I never used that in my bachelor's degree.
Oh, really?
But Excel, it was one of the most used tools in terms of analysis back then, and is still used quite extensively. So I learned that, yes, that's right. And then from there on, I was linked and became part of the digital marketing team, and then have never looked back.
Wow. And I specifically spoke about the Excel because you're my go-to person with anything to do with Excel, and I've never seen you use the mouse. Like everything has a shortcut, and everything. Do you ever use your mouse on Excel, except for opening and closing it, maybe?
No, I think if you are going to use Excel and if you need to be good at it, you need to avoid mouse.
Now that we know your journey to performance marketing, if hypothetically you did not get into performance marketing, where do you see yourself, or where would have you seen yourself?
Probably still working on some engineering side of things, or if very specific, if not performance marketing, probably data or BI.
Okay. All right. So you're sticking somewhere close by.
Close to technology, or even, you never know, a programmer.
All right. Oh, okay. That's another interesting part. We usually relax with social media. Do you also do the same?
I don't use social media too much, but most of my time is spent reading content about latest technologies, because it is very important to stay up to date what's happening, because that is what I do on daily basis, working with various platforms, understanding any new features, new updates. The entertainment time is limited, so it's more towards doing some R&D or learning or getting better.
Fair enough. And on that topic of, let's say, Google, do you skip YouTube ads?
My kid knows how to, so he knows how to skip an ad using the TV remote control.
Again, not giving a straight answer now. All right. You're one of the most composed, calm people that I've ever met personally. And it's not just because he's in this interview. You've always been that way. Is there a secret to it? Like, is there a point where you've just calmed down, you just lost it, or anything at all? Do you have any human instinct to shout or be hyper?
I think I'm good with self-control, so probably that helps.
Fair enough. But you've always been this way throughout your...
That's right, true.
All right, Amash, thanks a lot for your time. And that's all the questions that I had. And we got to know a lot about your team, about yourself. How was your experience on the show?
Thank you, Charles, for having me, and it was a wonderful time.
Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining us this time. We hope you had a good time, and we'll see you soon.